please get up, give a great welcome, and stand and get loud for Mr. Sam Parr and Nathan Barry.
Here we are. What's going on? How everyone doing? This is I think the first conference I've spoken at in a very long time.
I think so.
So that's cool. Nice to see you guys.
Thanks for making the trip out to Boise.
Yeah, Boise's cool. How many people flew in from a different place? Oh, a lot of people. Okay, I flew into Boise. It's my first time here. I'm excited to see what it's all about.
How many had a terrible flight experience thanks to Delta, Southwest, or somebody else? Yeah.
I had a 10-hour layover in Minneapolis.
Unplanned.
Yeah, so we went and walked around downtown, but it's all good. We're here. Yeah. So, you just want me to introduce myself?
Sure.
It was a good introduction.
All
right, so my name's Sam Parr. How many of you have heard of or read The Hustle? Cool. And how many of you have heard of or listened to My First Million? Great. So for those of you who don't, The Hustle, it's I don't own it anymore. It's a daily email that went out to Steph Smith. Is Steph Smith here? Oh, well, this woman.
She's teaching a workshop later.
Yeah, some of people who worked at The Hustle are here. We're in the 2 million to 2.5 million subscriber range. So 2 to 2.5 million people a day read The Hustle. And each day we send out all the business and tech news that you need to know. We have a team of journalists who write it, and it sends 6 days a week. We also, this year, had we not sold, which I'm not that angry about, but we probably would have done between 40 and 50 million in revenue this year, which was great because that would have been our 5th year of business, and we were a bootstrap business. But I sold it, and who knows? But we also made money through Trends, which was a paid subscription service that we had. That was $300 a year, which was horribly priced. We could talk about that if you want. And then we also have a whole bunch of podcasts, including My First Million and a bunch of other podcasts. So I know a little bit about building content businesses, and I've been a ConvertKit user for a bunch of projects since 2014. 14?
Probably?
Yeah, I've been using you guys forever.
Yeah, who wants to hear about how to build an email list? Is anyone into that topic? A few people? There's 4 people, yeah. So building an email list to 2.5 million people, I think that's really hard. We were talking backstage, and you're like, building an email list is not that hard. So walk us through that.
So
yeah,
I choose my words carefully. It is hard, but it's not challenging. It's like I was telling Nathan, I was it's kind of like lifting weights. If you want to get strong, you just lift weights for 3 years. You do it 4 days a week. You lift X amount of weight and you eat X amount of calories. And the likelihood that your muscles are going to get bigger, you're going to get stronger. Or if you want to lose weight, it's the other way around. You eat less. It's kind of like a math game. It's the likelihood that it's going to work is kind of high. That's to me how newsletters are, and I can explain how that works. But so in year 1, we went from 0 to I think 150 or 200,000 subscribers.
Wow.
From year 2 to 3, we got to 500, and then 3 to 4, or let's say it was something like 0 to 100, and then the next benchmark was 100 to 500, and then 500 to 1 million, and then 1 million to 2. I think those were those have been the gaps.
Yep.
The things that we did to grow were different in each stage, but to go to 0 to 100,000, it was only blogging. We didn't spend a dime in marketing. And then after that, we started spending a fair bit on marketing. But when we first started, the week that we started, I actually thought we were going to go out of business. So the whole plan for getting popular was to do lots and lots of blogging. I knew how to write kind of well, and I was I'm going to do lots of blogging, and I know that I'm going to start this thing called The Hustle. It's at the time, it wasn't news. It was tech and business articles, not necessarily news. But I was I know the type of person I want to sign up is this person. They hang out in these 5 or 10 places on the internet. I need to get their attention. I need them to come to my website, and I need them to 3% of them to enter their email. Great, I need a lot of them to come to my website. So how do I do that? So I knew a guy who used to write books on how to basically sleep with women. He was a pickup artist type of guy, and I was hey, you don't sleep with women. You're a loser. I've never seen you with a girl in my life. He's yeah, but I plagiarize. He's told me what he did, but he didn't use these words. But basically, he was plagiarizing other people's books like rewriting them and then putting them on Amazon with a sexy title and getting fake reviews and then ranking and making like 60 grand a month. And I was like, oh, that's horrible. That is a horrible thing to do. I think that is disgusting. I'm gonna write about that. Like that's like I was like, I think that's nonsense. I think A, like you're full of shit. You shouldn't do that. That's stupid. But B, I can't believe Amazon like is letting this happen. We got to write about that. And so we wrote about that. And then the week later, to prove that it was true in a thing, I followed his process and I plagiarized a romantic novel because romantic novels have lots of liquidity in the Amazon marketplace. And I became a best-selling romance novelist.
Sam Parr, right here, ladies and gentlemen. Claim to fame.
And those 2 articles that we wrote in the very first week got viewed by like 1.5 million people, and we got like our first, many thousands of subscribers. Yeah. And then like Harlequin, does anyone know what Harlequin books are? I had no idea what that was. That's the world's largest romance novel publisher in the world. The one that I plagiarized was their book. And they sent me an email being like, oh, you just like,
plagiarized us
and laughed about it. And we're coming after you. We're going to call you. And they called me and I was like, you guys, I'm so sorry. I wasn't mocking you. This is actually, if you think about it, in favor of you. I'm saying this is nonsense that this is allowed and I don't agree with it. And they're like, yeah, we know. We're just trying to scare you. We're not going to do anything. Just can you please apologize publicly and just like take it down? I'm like, yeah, totally. So that was like how it worked. But to get to like 150-ish thousand in the first month or first year, we just like, I blogged like, some days I would write 3 or 4 or 5 articles a day.
So on that, like if you're not writing like, oh, here's a simple how-to guide or doing SEO research of what article is going to rank. You're writing the things that you're like dead certain someone's going to click on, read, and then tell their friends about.
So there's like 3 types. I mean, there's a bunch of types of things that you could write, but like maybe there's like 3 that I think about all the time. There's one where it's just like this is in my heart and I want to get it out. It's like a piece of art and I need to get it out. Number 2 is like SEO. So I'm just writing for whatever search for, hoping that people Google it, and that's pretty mechanical. That's like doesn't have that much like soul in it. And then the third one is I need to write something that I know people are going to click on and they're going to come to my website and they're going to enter their email. That third one, I spent a lot of time there, and then I spent a lot of time on the first one, just writing stuff that felt cool and fun for me.
Yep. Okay, so once you write and publish one of these, what's the promotion process like? Because you don't just publish it and say,
so I think of the promotion process first.
Yeah.
So I think in my head, who do I want to attract? What platforms are they already on? What headline will attract them? Then I need to fill the story in to get them. So, for example, a lot of people who, you guys remember Soylent? It's not really that popular anymore, but it's like Slim Fast for like engineer bros. And I was like, oh, that type of person would want tech and business news. Let's attract them. So we lived on Soylent for 30 days and only ate Soylent.
As one does.
Yeah, so we're like, we're only gonna drink Soylent for 30 days with 0 calories, and we're gonna do it while working out and like exercising. And we did that because Reddit had a subreddit called Soylent with like 100,000 followers. And I was like, oh, I bet we can rank #1 on that with this article for sure. Mm-hmm. And that will get us 300,000 or so people to the website, which would get us like 15,000 subscribers. Yeah, that'd be awesome. I would do that. That's a month's worth of work. If we're trying to get 100,000 in year 1, that's 12,000 subscribers. That's,
So you're going out there and looking at communities that already exist online that overlap with the audience that you want to have, and then you're saying, okay, what interesting, unique articles can I write that this community is going to resonate with?
That is the strategy that works when you're just starting. Yep. So like when I'm just starting and I'm a nobody and I'm just trying to break in, I'm trying to piggyback off of people and platforms and other communities to siphon them into my thing, and then once they're in my thing, it's not like it's a zero-sum game. Like, you'd be part of a lot of different things, so it's not like it's a negative thing, but I siphon them into my thing, and then once they're in my thing, then I can do some stuff that's a little bit more just like my brand, and then I'll be more of a tastemaker.
Right.
You know what I mean? But when I'm just starting to get going, like, I'm not really a tastemaker because no one cares about my taste. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, when was it that it started to make that switch for you? Like either time or subscriber count?
Probably about 100,000-ish subscribers. So yeah, probably about 100,000.
This is something, anyone who's built a large email list has probably encountered this. So I'm curious about your thoughts of like the growth curve flattening because your churn from unsubscribes starts to kick in. Did you run into that?
Yeah, all the time. It sucks. Yes, particularly when you get into the millions. Sometimes, so like our churn, we look at churn not on a whole level, but for different sources.
Okay.
And so some source, but then it's also like the churn, month one churn could be like 10%, but then it gets lowered to like 2, and then like once you get on month 3, it's like you don't ever go away. But if you have like 4% churn, which doesn't sound horrible, that basically means, you would know the math more than I would actually. If 4% churn means that they stay for like a year.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I like your rule on My First Million of not doing live math.
Yeah.
But like the churn formula would be the percentage divided by 1.
But this one's easy.
1 divided by
what's
1%.
What's 4% of a million? 40,000?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm losing 40,000. So I'm losing over 1,000 subscribers a day at a million.
40,000 a month. Yeah,
meaning I've got to add about 1,000 a day just to keep up. Then I've got to add another 1,000 just to grow at only 3% when I'm really trying to like double or triple every year. So I got to add way more than that.
Yeah.
So it really adds up. And so we would do all these things to reduce churn. And a lot of them were helpful. A lot of them weren't. I mean, the most important thing is just get good people to come in and just have good content. I mean, that's like it's easy to say, but.
Was there anything that you really thought would work that just didn't at all?
Here's something interesting. When we first started, the hustle was just a weekly email. The way that we made money through subscriptions, through events, and advertising. The year we sold, I think we were doing, I forget, 15 million or something in ad revenue, but we sold in like February. So that trailing 12 months, it was like 12 or 13 or 14. And then the next year was going to be a lot more. So in order to make ad revenue work, it's all just a math equation. I think of everything as math. So it's basically like, some of these are going to be made up numbers. $25 per 1,000 sends is how much I charge an advertiser. If I have 1 million people on my list, that means I make $25,000 every time I hit send. So if you want to make money, what are you going to do? You're going to send a ton of emails, right? You're going to send
6 times a week.
6 times a week, which is 24 times a month. And so at first we were like, but we're just sending this like weekly email where I have to like do crazy shit, like live on Soylent and like plagiarize a book and become a bestseller. Like I can't do that every week, let alone like every day. Like it's hard, I can't do that. So that's why we were like, I like news anyway. At first we were like, I'm not going to launch news because like, I'm not a journalist. And I had like this no, screw that, man. I like news. I have an opinion. I could do this. And so we started doing news. And at first we were like, but then our churn's just going to go through the roof. And so then we went from sending weekly to like 2 days a week. And then we're like, okay, the churn's not really going down. Let's move to 3. And then we moved it to 6. And our churn went down. The more we sent, the lower churn went because we became, A, it's news. So like that is habit forming. But B, the packaging, which is you're sent an email every day or most every day, that becomes a habit and you're used to it. Versus like you could sign up for something. If you sign up for a weekly email and you don't read the first 2 weeks, by week 3, you're like, who the fuck is this? I don't even remember signing up for this shit. And so one thing that helped us reduce churn and improve our business was sending higher frequency, which a lot of creators, particularly the creator type, like the people who which I am part of, are very sensitive about hurting their users. They're like, oh, we can't send it, it's too annoying. No, it's not too annoying. It's only annoying if it sucks. If it's good stuff, like, you want more.
So then, like, when I think about sending 6 days a week, that to me sounds like an incredible amount of time, right? That you're going to have to put into it.
Dude, I think there's some business. I think some people out there probably have a business where you could send an email 3 or 4 times a day.
Okay. What's an example where you think that would work?
For example, has anyone heard of Haro? H-A-R-O?
Yeah.
I love Haro. I love it as a user and as like an admirer of the business. It stands for Help a Reporter Out. And like 3 times a day. So like when the Wall Street Journal wants to write an article on like the supply shortage of couches in America, the journalist is like, who the fuck am I going to talk to about supply shortage? And so they go to help a reporter out, and they give help a reporter like $50 or 100, I don't know what it is, and help a reporter sends that, an email out with like 10 other requests. It's like, Wall Street Journal reporter needs someone who took 8 months to get a couch supplied to them. They need to talk to you immediately. And I replied, and I was on the cover of the Wall Street Journal, me and my wife. If you Google Sam Parr couch, you'll see that article. No, like for real. And they sent an email out that like 3 or 4 times a day because Wall Street Journal, New York Times, whatever, they have like, 1,000 journalists. And so like that's an example.
Right. So finding something that the value is there and the frequency it gets really high. I want to talk about monetization, right? Because you turned, a lot of people are running newsletters as a solo creator, or they're starting to hire an assistant or an editor and scale up from there. What were the different revenue streams that you had at The Hustle, and what were you, like how is that changing over time?
So I bootstrapped the business, so we did conferences, and I made like $500,000 in the first, maybe $400,000 in the first year on conferences, and like no money on advertising. And the conferences, it was just me and like 2 employees, so that was mostly profit, and that's what I used to fund the business. And then it was just like me and 2 other people. I was writing the email and then selling the ads, and I got us, once we hit 70,000 subscribers, I think I got us to $35,000 a month in revenue, which paid for the bills. And then I hired a salesperson, and then it like, once I hired a salesperson, like took off.
Having someone who's a professional doing
a professional seller. I didn't know how to sell it. My like pitch to people was like, hey, your founder spoke at our event. You guys should sponsor our event, or sponsor our newsletter. And they're like, cool, how much is it? I'm like, just whatever you want to pay. And if you think it's good, just like tell your friends, and like whatever's fair. Like that's what I would say.
Yeah. And
it was like, so at the Casper, I told it the Wealthfront. I was like, I don't know. So like a professional salesperson like operationalized it and made it good. So that advertising business, 100%, if we still owned it, could scale to 100 million a year in revenue. It would have taken us 5 or 6 or 7 more years, but for sure can get to 100. A lot of our competitors are nearing 60, 80 million. We made money through Trends, which was our paid subscription, which was basically like a Facebook community and a weekly email where we would analyze all types of interesting business models out there and try to like look at the data as what trends we think are popping off. That business, I see, is that Calvin back there? There, it's Calvin. His girlfriend Steph ran Trends. Steph Smith, she's running around here somewhere. I think that team was like 4 people, maybe 3 people, 4 people, and it was doing like $500,000 a month in subscription revenue. So like $6 million a year in subscription revenue, and that was killer. So we made money through Trends, and that was priced poorly. That was $299 a year, and we accepted all the money up front, so we didn't do monthly, and that was a smart move. But we should have made it either $99, so it was an impulse buy, and we would have gotten way more volume, and then we would have had an upsell that was $2,000. That would have been the smarter move, but.
Yeah, and we were talking backstage, you were going to change that.
Yeah, I would have made it an impulse buy of like $129 and just gotten a lot of people in there, and then I would have created higher end research. Or I would have skipped that all together and just made like research. It was basically, Trends was research, and it was awesome. And what I realized was like, just like, people like here and me were buying it. I built it because when we were figuring out what type, I knew with the business model, we were gonna get 1 million subscribers, and then I was like, then I gotta figure out another way to monetize, because I don't like monetizing just through ads. Because like, one time, we did a story about Fuck Jerry. Have you guys heard of Fuck Jerry? It was like this and so like, it's like this Instagram person. And so like every sentence in the email that day had the word fuck in it. And cause I thought it'd be funny. And so like, even if it had nothing to do with Fuck Jerry, it said like, we started talking about it. And like Goldman Sachs was our advertiser that day. Like,
they weren't thrilled?
Yeah. They were like, fuck you. So I was like, this stinks. I want to say whatever I want to say. So anyway, the name of the plan was always get big and then sell stuff to the audience. And we came up with Trends, which was because I would research like which businesses that we should launch, and I would send it to my friends, and they're like, dude, your research is so good. Just make this the business. I was like, wait, people pay for research? They're like, yeah, haven't you heard of Gartner? It's like a $10 billion company. I'm like, no, I didn't know about any of that. So we came up with this thing, and we charged $299, and we had this amazing research that Steph led. And like, I looked at like Gartner, who was charging like 30 or 50 grand a year, and our stuff was just as good. So what I should have done is
Charged a lot more.
charge way more.
Yeah.
And that was such a mistake.
Yeah, or had that split model where you got people in at one price and then there were, for a simpler offering and then there was a big upsell.
Yes.
What do you think about, paid newsletters are quite a trend now, but most people who launch
They're not quite a trend now. So many people say this. Paid newsletters have been around for
Yeah, they have.
it's been around forever. The guy who, when I sold my company, I had hired a CEO. He had scaled a paid newsletter business to $600 million a year in revenue. And
Do you want to say what the name of that?
Motley Fool. And paid newsletters is a way better business than free newsletters. Now,
Sage advice from Sam Parr.
yeah. Free is cool for the ego because you're
Reach this many people.
I'm reaching this many people, but recurring revenue, obviously, duh, it's way better. But the best thing is to have both in reality.
Right.
But paid newsletters are awesome.
A lot of people, what they're doing though, is they're like, I'm going to launch a paid newsletter. It's going to be $5 a month. And yeah, what do you think about that?
You can't buy your kid braces with $5 a month. That ain't gonna cut it. I was also like that, that $5 a month thing. I'm like, I can't pay my bills
Right.
with $5 a month. You need so many people. So I think if you're gonna do it, you should charge a lot more.
Yes, probably two things. Charge a lot more and then charge on an annual basis rather than a monthly. So you avoid the people who are signing up and then canceling after paying you $10.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna pay, what's 5 times 12, 60? So $60 a year, no, you need so many people to sign up to make it worth, to make it interesting. It's just, and you can't acquire a customer for cheap enough.
Yeah.
So it's just you're shooting yourself in the foot. I own a small software business that charges $4 a month, and originally charged $2 a month, and we just changed the 2 to a 4, and everything stayed the same except revenue went up, and then it was $4 a month, and we're like, well, let's grow this thing. And it's it was impossible to grow. I couldn't buy ads anywhere. It's just logistically, if you look at the software companies that have gone public, there are the MailChimps of the world who have made it work, but the likelihood is that you have to charge a lot more than.
You have to charge a lot more or have really good upsells or expansion revenue. Which is what MailChimp has. I mean, ConvertKit has the same thing, right? Of pricing is tied to how many subscribers you have, so it grows together with that.
Yes.
Let's go back to subscriber growth, but we're going to take questions from the audience. We have one of these catchbox things that I'm terrified to throw at people, but we're going to do it anyway. But before that, you and I were having a conversation, I don't know, a year ago, because I was starting a local newsletter, and you were asking what my goal was for the first year for subscribers. I said 10,000. What did you say?
I was like, you tell me. What did I say?
I think you said 50,000.
Yeah, well, I was like, what are you,
yeah.
You sleeping? Why would you just do 10,000? You should do 50,000.
Yeah, so if you're in that position, right, of grow, it could be a local newsletter or something else. What are the things that you're looking for when you're like, look, I'm going to take over running marketing for someone's creator business or whatever, and this is what I'm going to do to get to 50,000
So I think it's important to figure out, to make sure you don't have a leaky bucket. So how many of you here have a newsletter and you've never bought ads to drive traffic or leads or whatever to your newsletter?
So yeah, never done paid advertising.
You've never bought ads before.
Okay.
So a nice amount of people. So my opinion is what you should do is get to a certain number, and these things are always hard to say a number, but I'll try to benchmark it. Let's say 5 or 10,000 subscribers just through word of mouth. I mean, it could be as high as 100,000, it could be as low as a couple thousand, but let's just say 5 or 10. Get there organically just to make sure people like your content. Then what you do is, how many of you have never done math around what your LTV and what your payback cycle is and what your CAC could possibly be? Great. It's okay, be honest. Great, a lot of you. Okay, this is one of the big things holding you back, I think. So CAC, I don't even know what it stands for.
Customer acquisition cost.
It's how much you pay to acquire a customer. To get you to come to this conference, Nathan bought ads on billboards, he bought ads on Facebook, they did all this thing, you add all that up, you see how many people bought through that, and you divide it by how much he spent versus how much money you guys spent, and he's like, okay, I paid $200 to get you here. I paid $200, and you gave him $300. He made a profit of $100. Most people don't do that with their email lists, and they should, and they're intimidated by it, and I understand why, because it's like it's hard to track. But the good news is it's actually not that hard to track. ConvertKit, I believe, has all these tools. Do you guys have a lot of these?
We have some of those built in, yeah.
So you could track all of this. And the second thing that people need to do is they need to figure out the LTV, or basically they just need to figure out how much money they make from each person who signs up. So what's your newsletter?
Flow.
I can't hear you.
Flow.
Okay, and how do you make money?
Teaching.
Oh, great. Great. So do you sell a course?
Many.
All right. Tell me the price of one course.
$200.
$200. Okay. You have a list of 2,000 people. Your course is $200. You know that 10% of people who sign up for your email list purchase that. So if you have 1,000 people, that's 100 people that bought your course. 100 times 200 is what? Literally don't know. Is that 2,000?
20,000.
Is that 20,000?
Yeah.
There. You just made $20,000 off your 1,000 person email list. So you can use that math to be like, great, therefore one email is worth, again, I can't do this fucking math. One email is worth $100. So then are you willing to spend $50 to acquire one email? Yeah, of course you are. If you have a machine that turns $1 into $2, you get that money truck, you back it up, and you dump it into that machine. So what I think, what a lot of people don't do that they should do, like, sorry, what's your name? Marlo, I'm going to pick on you, but I'm not picking on you. You're very normal in the sense of a lot of people have this problem because they're like, I teach yoga. I don't like fucking do numbers. It's like, well, you want to make money, you got to figure this out. And so what you need to do is figure out your monetization engine. And so what's that math? What's that funnel? For every one person who signs up, how many of them, how long do they stay with them? How many of them buy from my thing? Or how many of them buy my thing? And how much profit do I make that thing? Therefore, if I make $500 in profit from that thing I'm selling, am I happy with spending $200? Yeah, okay, sounds good. Now I'm going to buy ads all over the place to get as many customers that fit nicely in that funnel, and I'm going to keep pouring money into that until it breaks, which it always does. And then you find the next channel. You say, all right, Facebook, I exhausted Facebook, now let's try this thing, now let's try this thing. Of course, buying ads aren't the only way to do that. You could say like, well, for every blog post I write, this happens. For every conference I host, I get this many customers. For every, I don't know, what do you guys do? Because you guys don't advertise.
A lot of content marketing.
A lot of content marketing. For every article that I write, I get this thing. And so so my opinion is more creators should look at their funnels like that.
Right.
And it doesn't just have to be ads, but that's an easy one, but it doesn't have to be one. Do you guys have an ad budget?
Yeah, we spend $200,000 a month on ads for ConvertKit.
Yeah, so at one point we were spending like $500,000 a month.
Yep.
And that's not even that much for some businesses.
Yeah, and the other thing that makes a big difference in what you can spend on ads is just how good your funnel is and how much you're making on the back end. So you'll come into a situation where you're trying to buy ads in a certain category and you can't afford it because the costs are too high. And you're up against people who have a much better funnel than you do, and they have upsells or a better priced product or whatever else. And so they're able to spend more to acquire the customer. So if you do that math and you're like, oh, I can only spend $1 to acquire a subscriber, what that means is that you need to figure out how to monetize each subscriber better.
And does anyone own an e-com business? E-com people are always better at this than media people. So what I'm talking about is very normal stuff. SaaS people are also better at this. Media people, content people, for some reason, they're like, oh, this like I'm intimidated by this, or this is like out of my wheelhouse. I understand that. That's how I felt too. But if you want to make it work, you got to figure this out. So we'll go to questions, but
yep.
Google like Andrew Chen, or
yeah.
what should they Google? Like whose blog? Andrew Chen's blog would probably.
I think he's probably the best.
Like just Google Andrew Chen CAC. CAC is C-A-C.
All right, let's do some questions. Who's got a question they'd like to ask Sam? Oh, we've got one back there. Oh, if you could stand up and throw it rather than doing like the blind shoulder throw, yeah. Who had it? Kay, is that you? All right, Kay. Yeah. We get help from lots of people.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Nathan. Question about the CAC when you're a solopreneur. Maybe you got a VA. How do you value your time? Because the cost is your time. in the early days before you're buying ads.
Well,
and
what are
all
you
that.
selling?
Online courses, let's say. So you're like a solo-based business, sending newsletters, writing blogs, and then selling a course on the back end.
Sorry. Okay. And what's the question?
So I'm trying to figure out the cost of my content marketing is my time writing all of these blog posts and all of these newsletters.
I don't calculate time into that. Do you?
I think it's a good question, because if you put 50 hours into writing an amazing post, or 10 hours into writing an amazing post, and it gets you 1,000 subscribers, that's good.
But
If
I
it
don't
gets you
measure
5
it
subscribers-
with my time. I measure it with I can be doing this, or this.
Right.
Which one gets the most results per hour spent on it? Not my time is worth. Intrinsically, it's worth you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I usually just make a list of 10 things, and I'm like, here's my hypothesis. Here's how long this takes. Here's what I think the end result could be, and I just do that for a bunch of things, and I pick.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the opportunity cost of your time.
Yeah, it's the opportunity cost. I don't think of it exactly how you thought of it.
One other thing that you had in your answer that I just want to highlight is you're writing down assumptions that you made. We do this all the time. We're like, oh, I think this is going to be a great venture, a great idea, and it doesn't work out. And we're like, oh, okay, and we move right along. But if you don't write down your assumptions of what's going to happen, if you don't write that down in advance, then you can't recalibrate and look back and be like, oh, I am consistently off by 50% on all of my projections or
That's
whatever.
true.
And so if you write it down, then you realize like, okay, that was wrong. I can learn from it, and you calibrate over time. And later on, you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this content marketing. I think it's gonna have this reach from this promotion, and you'll actually be spot on because you've tracked your results. What's another question? Who's got one?
I think there's a guy over here on your left.
Yeah, I see.
We'll go.
Stay standing, and then we'll work over here. Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Sam. So you talked about, you told the story about how you did this, novel plagiarism thing,
Yeah.
and that idea and writing about that, and that drove a lot of the success early on. That and some other things you did.
That article and articles like it. Like
Right. So those kind of outside the box ideas, very creative, and I'm kind of curious, what were some of the things that led you to approach your writing that way, led you to thinking more outside of the box?
Well, so I think that outside of the box. I'm actually, I have a workshop that I'm supposed to be doing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I have a bunch of stuff.
Sam's teaching a workshop later.
No,
You
I have
one
all the slides. My wife and I, we put together all the slides. I don't think that outside the box. So I said there's like 3-ish categories. Maybe there's more. They're like one, like just what do I feel like in my heart that I want the world to know? That's like, I just do what I want. The second one is like, there's a purpose here of like search results. That's less what I want. It's just like, it's objectively, here's what people want. I have to do that. The third is like, I want people to view it. For that one, what I tend to do is I like to look at just what are other people doing that works, and where can I sprinkle a little bit of my brand in there. So for example, a lot of music has like, I'm not a musician, but I imagine there's like 20 or 30 chord progressions that like most every song has used, or like it's all like, they're all like within their pop music is within a certain beats per minute. Like I imagine there's like huge amounts of commonalities for like hit music. And I thought, I'm just gonna do the same for like writing. So I'm gonna find interesting stuff on Reddit, on Hacker News, that someone says something interesting, and in the comment section, I'll read the comments and I'll figure out what people are saying about it, and I'll change it. For example, do you remember when Steve Harvey, what was that thing, Miss America or something like that? He was like the Miss America person. Was it Miss America? Yes. Yeah, and he like read the wrong thing. And he, at one point he goes, I'm sorry, this is what the card said. Well, everyone was writing about how Steve Harvey screwed it up. And so I was like, oh, okay, this topic is popular. But if you zoomed in on that card, it was horribly designed. It was horribly designed. Like the second place person was like, had the bigger name. And I'm like, and so I wrote an article saying like, It's actually not Steve Harvey's fault. That card was horribly designed. Read it. Look at the design. That's not how good design works. Good design works like this, this, and this, and this. That article was viewed like 1,000,000 times in a day because people were already searching for Steve Harvey. So I just had a different take on it. And so my point is, it's not, I think, that creative. I just think that it's just like, A, what are people already doing, and how do I sprinkle a little bit of my stuff in there? Or two, like what do people care about? Like there's about a bunch of questions that I bet that like when you saw this Soylent thing, you're like, what would it be like if I just lived off that? You know, like a lot of people have that question. So it's like not that, in my opinion, it's not that, like, it's just like the things that I think I have questions about, I'll just write. And if you actually Google The Hustle, Zach Crockett, he's our best writer for sure. He like will Google he'll like write about like the economics of like lottery tickets or the economics of owning a franchise. Like these are just things that everyone asks about all the time, and he just is really good at spotting those. So anyway, that was kind of a long-winded answer, but I'm doing a thing on it later if you want to come.
Sounds good. All right, we had a question over here. Yeah. Ooh, nicely done.
Thanks, guys. This has been really helpful. You mentioned that to go from like 0 to 100,000 subscribers, you would find like Reddit communities and stuff to kind of post your articles in. I know that Reddit can be kind of cagey about self-promotion. So what's your advice for like less shameless self-promotion?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I had never done the things like, I know people who have done services where they paid money and like there was like a bunch of like bot farms like posting. I didn't do that. I was a member of the communities. So like it was like a long planned thing. So I'm like, all right, if we're gonna do the Soylent thing, I'm gonna start commenting on other people's articles. I'm gonna start posting and so by the time I posted my thing, I'd already posted probably 10 different things. And then I posted my thing. So for Facebook communities and for Reddit communities, I typically do two things. One, I'm commenting and posting on stuff well in advance, so I am a legitimate member of the community. And number two, when I do post it, I don't try to trick people because like the best way to circumvent someone's bullshit detector, just don't bullshit. So I'll be like, hey, I'm a member of this community. I was inspired. I actually wrote this article. If you don't want to click on the article, here's the summary. And I would like write the summary in the comment section. So like, if you do want to click and read more of it, here's the whole thing. Talk to y'all soon. Let me know if you like this. Like I would just do like things like that. It was pretty like straightforward.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Two things I'd add to that. One, Sam, you're talking about being a member of the community before writing the article, and it's a huge difference than publishing the article and saying, what communities can I stick this into?
No, I've already thought about that in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I'm thinking about it. So like when I think of an article, I'm like, now Twitter's popular. It wasn't when we started. It was like, who can I get to share this thing?
Right.
Is that how you think about it? I mean, he has this blog called the $1 Billion Blog.
Yep.
And it's a great article. I love that article. When you were thinking about that, I bet you had that. If I had to guess, you were like in the shower on a walk, and you like had that title, that headline in your head, and you're like, oh, I got to write an article around that headline.
Yeah, I mean that came from actually a conversation with James Clear, where we were riffing on this stuff of what is the highest value. Like everything we're doing as creators is collecting attention and then directing it somewhere, right? Whether it's to ads, paid newsletters, courses, any of those things. So the question in the article is just, what is the highest ROI way that you can direct that attention? And so the whole thing just came out of that. And so
did you think of where it would be popular first?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about a couple different subreddits. I thought about Hacker News, and then I thought of like, okay, it's written for these 10 people who I think will really like it.
And did you send it to them?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And you may or may not have asked them to, but you wanted them
No,
to share
I just said like, this is the kind of thing that we talk about or that I think you would like. I think, and then of course they share it. But
and once you get popular, like Tim Urban's here, right?
Yep.
He's already a big deal. So like he's a tastemaker. So whatever he says, like I'm on board with because I'm such a fan of his. But like when you're first, a lot of that stuff is mostly when you're first starting out.
Yep. Okay, who else? Okay, right over here. All right.
If there's anybody in the lane of a free newsletter in this room and they're thinking of shifting to the lane of a paid newsletter, I know there are like technical tools to do that, but in terms of mindset, are there any tips you would give to people in terms of how to do that or things to think about or motivations to do that? What would you say to that person who's just on the the cusp of considering moving from a free newsletter to a paid newsletter?
Well, you got to make sure that like what you're doing is providing value. A lot of big media companies, they say, oh, this will be ad free or something like that. And like in most cases, that's horrible value. Like that's not that big a deal. For like YouTube, it's cool but like for like CNN.com or some like just like website where there's ads, it's like it's not that big a deal to have ads. So that's an example of like a bad offering. So you have to make sure that the offering is actually good. Then you have to make sure that you have a really well thought out launch. So like 2 weeks out, you want to do like a nice slow launch where you start like building hype. And you're like, we have big news coming, we have big news coming, we have big news coming, and then you do a pretty nice launch. I like to do it like a pretty big launch. And then I imagine if you're good at that, you can get 3% of people to become paying subscribers. What am I missing?
Well, I think that you're also talking about running a free newsletter and a paid newsletter simultaneously, because if you switch entirely to a paid newsletter, then all of your lead gen and all of your attention goes away if everything's behind a paywall. So something that you did with The Hustle is you still had 6 days a week of a free newsletter.
Yeah, which had this whole other team.
Yep. And then you have this additional product and trends that's driving that revenue. So you just have to be really careful what goes behind a paywall versus what doesn't. And then I think what you're saying about like, oh, buy the paid version because it doesn't have ads, it's not a compelling value proposition. So I know plenty of people who leave the ads in the paid newsletter as well.
That's not like, that's just one example of a bad offering that most people default to. So you have to make sure that the value is actually there. Additionally, I'm stereotyping this group of people. Again, I fall in this category, and I've had to fight this. This group of people, of creators, they kind of suck at selling. And I think that imagine, in most cases, like a long form sales page that sells your subscription, your paid newsletter is going to be needed. And you're gonna like feel sleazy sometimes writing it, but it can be really cool. There's a lot of really cool, well done, but like a longer form page to sell that is necessary.
Yep. Okay, right over here. And it looks like Danielle's got the mic.
Cool, is this working? Okay, great. This is actually a question for both Sam and Nathan. I work as a business advisor for SBA, and so I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and startups, and one of the biggest things I see day to day is 95% of the people that come to my office don't understand financial statements. And I know you guys being CEOs and really being in charge of large amounts of cash flow, you look at cash flow statements, you look at P&Ls and balance sheets and all that stuff, and you see the value of doing cash flow projections. You mentioned a little bit with LTV and CAC and all that stuff. What do you think the advantages are? Maybe you can speak on why it's so important, or maybe some resources you might think about in terms of smaller creators that haven't gotten to the state you guys are now. How important is it, do you think, for them to understand those cash flow statements and income statements? Do you think that's a key part of them being better creators? Is that a key function of that?
Dude, I didn't know what a cash flow statement was until we had hit $1 million a month in revenue. So like, I didn't know that like, we like had booked revenue, but I was like going to my team, I'm like, but it's not in the bank account. This isn't revenue then. And they're like, no, that's cash flow. Like, it's not cash flow. I'm like, no, revenue means it's in the bank. Like how, I can't spend, like, I didn't even, and someone had to like give me a book to read. I think it's in, like, I was doing like, what's it called? Like checking account accounting.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, is my checking account like, we made $1 million this month and we spent 600,000. Is the checking account up by 400,000? Okay, yeah, that's fine. And once I figured out how to do that, like, you don't even know that much, but once I figured it out, I could kind of identify. You were probably like that a little bit too.
Yeah, well, in accounting, you hear about cash accounting versus accrual accounting as two official terms, and then there is definitely checking account accounting. That's just like, did the balance go up or down in a given month? We ran on cash accounting for a long time. I think we were probably, actual number, maybe 8 million a year in revenue before we finally switched to accrual accounting. So I wouldn't get caught up in those specifics. What I would do is write these things down so that you can track it over time. Like even if, who here has overdrafted a checking account before? Yeah, a decent number of people. I've done it a lot. Not recently, thankfully, but I would get to the point where if the numbers weren't going well, I just would try to not pay attention to it. Like I didn't want bad news, which is a really terrible idea. So even if you get in the habit of maintaining a simple spreadsheet of revenue and expenses and you just update it every month, like that I think is fine at a basic level. But just, if it's going poorly, don't ignore it. Like get in a habit of plugging in the numbers manually, and that way you're looking through at least once a month of what's going on in your business. And then later on you'll hire people and get professional help for all of that. But I don't think it has to be crazy complicated. Just don't avoid it. So.
And you don't really need to know that much. I bought this book. I don't even remember the name of it. It was called like Warren Buffett Explains Income Statements and Cash Flow Statements. It was like 50 pages, and like that's. Or you probably could even just Google it, and there's probably someone who just made a Twitter thread, and like just like this for dummies, like cash flow statements for dummies. And once I figured that out, then I started. It helped a lot.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, that is all the time that we have.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.